Everyone, good afternoon. It's great to see you here. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the Wake County Board of Commissioners meeting for Monday, regular meeting for Monday, November 18th. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation by Commissioner Don Mile. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. At this time, I'm going to pray so you can worship in the manner that you see fit. Oh, gracious and Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to do the county's work and do what's in the best interest of the citizens of Wake County. We do this as humble servants for the people. And lastly, we ask that you continue to keep our colleague, Commissioner Vicki Addison, in your prayers as well, as the loss of her husband. And this we continue to pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Mile. As Commissioner Mile mentioned, Commissioner Adamson is not here today. We'll begin with the items of business. The first item is the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clabber?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented by the county manager with the addition of a public school acquisition item reflected or requested by the Wake County School Superintendent. The additional item will be placed on the regular agenda. And Mr. County Attorney, just as a point of order, this will be added to the end of the regular agenda?
It can actually be added wherever you would like on the agenda, as long as it's unanimous.
Okay.
Well, unanimous. Motion second and unanimous because it's the day of the board meeting.
I would request that we just go ahead and add it after the one regular agenda item that we already have on there.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. The second item on our agenda is retiree recognition. Manager Ellis, welcome to the podium.
Good afternoon. We have 4 employees who will be retiring between now and January 4th, and January 1st. The first person we want to recognize is Stanley Dormius. He's retiring with 21 years of service, a graduate of NC State with the Bachelor of Political Arts. Over the years, he served in various roles, including as an investigator with the Criminal Investigations Division, a deputy sheriff with Patrol Division, and most recently as deputy sheriff sergeant in the Courthouse Operation Division. He has particularly fond memories of the 6 years he spent in the Juvenile Division, where he made great friends with other law enforcement officers, child protective service workers, and child advocacy center workers. Let's give Stanley a round of applause. Up next, we have Timothy Lisk, who's with Community Services. He will be retiring with 34 years of service. He served as an assistant park manager, open space planner, and park manager. He was the founding park manager for Harris Lake and the American Tobacco Trail. And one of his greatest accomplishments was the establishment of the first public-private partnership for planning, construction, and management of a mountain bike trail system at Lake Crabtree. Let's give Timothy a round of applause. Up next, we have Tammy Malinowski, who's retiring from the City County Bureau of Identification. She began her career as a crime scene investigator in 2006. She's worked as a crime scene supervisor, assistant director of investigations division, and most recently as assistant director of CCBI. In her current role, she is responsible for overseeing operations in the criminal and civil identification units and assists with planning and implementation of agency-wide goals and initiatives. During her career, she's earned a certification in advanced law enforcement, the Crossing Award from the Center for Police Leadership and Ethics, and the FBI LEEDA Leadership Trilogy Award. Let's give Tammy a round of applause. Up next, we have Maria Vasquez Cherry with Health and Human Services. She's retiring with 28 years of service. She's worked in the community and Clinic G, assisting many mothers through their pregnancy journey. She's also provided her expertise in various support groups, including those for folks with diabetes, substance abuse, and mental health issues. Maria also sits on the Nurse Family Partnerships Advisory Board and was a recipient of the Staff of the Year Award. Let's give Maria a round of applause. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Manager Ellis. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. As a reminder, all items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and may be enacted by one motion. If a commissioner requests discussion on an item, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. May I have a motion to approve the consent
So
agenda?
moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Miles, second by Commissioner Waters. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioners. Now it is time for the general public comment period. At all regular meetings, the Board of Commissioners allocates time to hear from residents. Attendees had an opportunity to sign up using our online sign-up app. We've also provided opportunities to sign up here in person. I have a list of people who have signed up. When I call your name, please come to the podium. Give us your name, and if you would, please share what part of the county you reside in. You will have 3 minutes to speak. When you have 1 minute left, the yellow light on the top of the podium will go on. When your time has elapsed, the red light will go on. If you are still speaking at the end of your time, I will ask you to complete your sentence, and in the interest of fairness to everyone, I am going to be consistent about that. Please also note that commissioners will not respond to comments shared today from this dais. This comment period is a time for us to hear from you. The first name that I have on my list is Emily Register. Emily, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Emily, like she said. I live over by NC State, near the Athens Drive Community Library, which is what I wanted to come and talk to you guys about today. The bond has passed, which I'm glad about, which means now that a decision on where the library will be needs to be made, and the current location of the library, we don't feel like is actually in our neighborhood. Let me give you a little bit of a history of what we love about our library. My 2 kiddos are back here, and you'll get to hear from them in a minute. They love going to this library. It is a community neighborhood library. This summer, actually, we were at the library every single week, enough so that we got to know the other people, other faces that we saw, the library manager, and they just had so much fun going to the library every single week this year. And the new location, that's proposed off of Tryon and Yates Mill Pond, it's not in our neighborhood. It serves a less diverse area, a higher income area, and we really want to be able to maintain our community neighborhood library. Some of the options that we have thought about as a neighborhood are staying on the campus of Athens Drive High School as it gets rebuilt. There's lots of space back there, lots of fields back there. It's got to be some way that we can figure out how to use some of that for a new library space. The Kaplan Drive Park. I live on Kaplan Drive. I know this park is not used very often. I drive by it multiple times a week, walk by it multiple times a week. It's just a field and a walking path. We have 2 other really awesome parks in the vicinity that also have a gigantic field and a walking path that you can walk to from that Kaplan Drive Park. That maybe could be an option. Or over by the Lake Johnson pool. The Thomas Crowder Woodland Center could be another option. So my ask to you today is, as you're making the decision for where the new location of the library is going to be, just remember, those of us remember, like the people, like my kids that you will hear from, who love growing up going to this library, and keep us in your minds as you're making a decision for where this is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. The next person I have on my list is Bubba Register.
Bubba. Do we have a microphone or a stool or something? Okay, we can stand over here. We can talk loud, Bubs. That'll work. Can you give me your loud voice today? Mm-hmm. I don't think they can see you. Let's come stand over here. Come here. Can we see everybody? Mm-hmm. These are all the people. Can we see everyone? Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you wave and say hi?
Hi.
Good. And what's your name?
Baba.
Bubba. Bubba, how old are you?
6.
6? Wait a minute. Last week you were 5. What happened?
I just turned 6.
You just turned 6. You had a birthday? Did you? Let's see, your birthday party was on Saturday. Was it fun?
Mhm.
What did you do before you went to your birthday party that day? Do you remember?
Went to the library.
You went to the library. Did you
Athens
now?
Drive Library.
Athens Drive Library, that's right. And how many books did you come home with, Bubs?
8.
8 books. Is that the most books you've ever come home with? No? How many? What's the most?
9.
9? What are your favorite kinds of books to read?
Star Wars.
Star Wars books, okay? Now, we've been to a lot of events at the library. We went through a lot this summer. We went to story time, we've been to Legos, and we've been to a Star Wars event. Which one was your favorite event?
Legos.
The Legos? Why Legos?
I get that something.
You got to build some, tell them, not me.
I got to build something.
You got to build something? What'd you build? Do you remember? I think it was a boat. And you had to put it in water to see if it floated. Did yours float?
Yeah.
Yours? That's good. Mine wouldn't have floated. We've gone to the library many ways. We have walked, we have ridden our bikes, and we have driven sometimes. What's your favorite way to get to the library?
Bike.
Biking? Why?
I get to exercise my legs.
To exercise your legs. And what would you like to ask for when they think about where our new library is going to be? What would you like? Where would you like it to be?
In our neighborhood.
In our neighborhood. Can you say thank you for listening to me?
Thank you for listening to me.
Good job.
Thank you, Bubba. The next name that I have on my list is Henry. Register. Welcome, Henry.
All right, Henry, bud. Same thing. We're going to use our loud voices, okay? These are all the people that you're looking at. Can you say hi?
Hi.
That's not loud enough.
Hi.
There we go. What's your name?
Henry.
Henry. And how old are you?
7.
7? I'm not old enough to have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old, am I? What school do you go to, Henry?
AB Combs.
Louder.
AB Combs.
There you go. And what grade are you in?
2nd.
2nd grade? Okay. So this summer, since we didn't do any camps this summer, we went to the library instead. I know what Bubba's favorite event was. We did lots of story time, lots of Legos, and the Star Wars event. Which one was your favorite one?
Star Wars.
Star Wars? Mine too. What was your favorite part about the Star Wars event?
I got to get so much books.
You did get so many books. How many books did you get?
19.
19, but did you read them all? You did? How many
One
books?
day.
One day? You did, really? And how many books do you have in your room right now?
8.
You don't like reading at all, do you? You do like reading? I do too, but. All right, let's talk about how we get to the library. Walking, driving, riding your bike. What's your favorite way that we went to the library?
Riding bike.
Riding your bike too? How did I know that? And why?
I get to exercise my legs.
Exercise your legs. And when we came to this meeting today, I told you to pick one thing out of your room so that you could have something to occupy yourself with while we were waiting on our turn to talk. What was the one thing you picked?
Book.
What book was it?
Stink in the Harry Scary Spider.
Stink and the Hairy Scary Spider. And where'd you get that book from?
Library.
The Athens Drive Library on Saturday, didn't you? Yep. Now, when they are thinking about where to put the new library, where would you like our new library to be?
In our neighborhood.
In our neighborhood. Good job, bud. Can you say thank you?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Henry. The next name that I have on my list is Martinique Leray. Welcome, Martinique.
Hello, Martique Leray, and I live in Southwest Raleigh, also near the Athens Drive Library. Good afternoon, my name is Martique Leray. I live in the wonderful neighborhood of Cardinal Hills near Athens Drive High School's community library. This is an exciting time for Cardinal Hills and the surrounding neighborhoods because the library bond has passed. This means a new library will be created to replace our Athens Drive Community Library that has been nestled in our neighborhood since 1979. I and others are asking that when locations are considered and reviewed for this replacement library, that our community is not just given opportunities for public comment, but that we have a place at the table and are active participants in the site selection and vision for the replacement library. It is important to us that the new library is walkable, bikeable, and continues to sit within our community. where the Athens Drive Library has served us for over 45 years. As you can see, it is so important to us. We love it. We love that it's accessible. We love that it's safe. And we meet so many of our neighbors right there. It really bonds our community to get together. Thank you.
Thank you. The next name that I have on my list is Landis Vogler.
Thank you. My husband would love that you corrected that.
Hello, my name is Landis Lori Vogler. I live in Southwest Raleigh. I'm 8 years old and I live within walking and biking distance of Athens Drive Community Library. I love to read. I love to wander the library looking for interesting book covers. When I learned to ride my bike, my first official ride was to Athens Drive Community Library. I would like my library to stay close and within our neighborhood, so when I'm older, it will be easy and safe for me to ride there on my own. Thank you.
Thank you, Landis. The next name that I have on my list is Hannah McKenzie. Welcome, Hannah.
All right, thanks for the opportunity to speak today. So my name is Hannah McKenzie, and I'm here representing Friends of Athens Drive Community Library. I live in Southwest Raleigh on Athens Drive with my husband and my 2 school-aged kids. My husband actually commutes to Durham and has for the last 20 years. But we remain Wake County residents because from our home, we can walk to a city park, a city pool, a greenway, a grocery store, numerous bus stops, and in particular, the Athens Drive Community Library. Athens Drive Community Library opened in 1978 and continues to serve our economically and ethnically diverse community. Their placement of our library needs to remain in our community, where seniors, adults, teens, and children, like the ones you just heard from, don't need a car to access books, computers, printers, the internet, educational programming, volunteer opportunities, and a safe gathering place. The county staff have prioritized a 10-minute drive time for Wake County residents to reach libraries in our community, but that completely disregards household density, vulnerable populations, and transit accessibility, 3 things that are currently served by the Athens Drive Community Library's location. The county staff have also indicated that 5 acres is the minimum lot size needed for this project, despite no other community library in Wake County having a lot of this particular size. Closing our library branch and opening a new location many, many miles away, or even just 2 miles away, is unacceptable for my kids and all the patrons that use Athens Drive Library at this moment. I'm asking you as county commissioners to advocate for creative problem solving because this library will need it. We need you to work with county staff, with the school system, and the city of Raleigh to ensure that our library is replaced rather than closed. For more information, our website is friendsofathensdrivecommunitylibrary.org. Thank you for hearing and listening to us today.
Thank you, Hannah. The next name on my list is Frankie Hemby Eccles. Welcome, Frankie.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Frankie Hemby Eccles, and I am from Raleigh. I know you don't hear that too often, but I am from Raleigh, and I'm from South Raleigh in particularly, and I grew up in Southgate community. So now that our bond has passed for the library, I want to speak on behalf of the Southgate Library and the South Raleigh community. The bond is passed, and we want to ensure that the most vulnerable and historically underserved communities benefit, with a special emphasis being on Southeast Raleigh. There's a correlation between literacy and income, and we want to be sure that the library continues to focus on people from all walks of life. That includes our seniors and especially our public school children. They also promote entrepreneurship, small business development, and there is $19 million that could easily be used for a new standalone library for Southgate. Again, there's $19 million available that can be used for a standalone library for Southgate, South Raleigh. Not only are we voters, but we have a great memory. And we also would love to remind everyone that South Raleigh is important to the community in Wake County. So please consider that with that extra $19 million that is available for a Southgate standalone library. Please keep that in mind because the citizens will be discussing that as we talk about our power with our vote. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Frankie. The next name that I have on my list is Michael Rudden. Welcome, Michael.
Hello, my name is Michael Rudden. I live in Carolee Commons neighborhood on Maywood Avenue in Raleigh. It's in District 4. We have a major homelessness problem in my part of the city, which has only gotten worse since I moved into my neighborhood in 2019. It started escalating during COVID with the expansion of St. John's MCC into a white flag shelter with no discussion for the neighborhood. This brought a lot of issues across the street from us, including assaults, thefts, and more. Eventually, this shelter relocated, and there was a time of relative peace. In January of 2023, after taking an overflow from the White Flag shelter, Healing Transitions they were taking in too many people to their overnight drop-in program, so Wake County started funding them to expand their overnight drop-ins. With this expansion of overnight shelter services, we began a slow descent into madness as homeless encampments have surrounded our area. The current state of the area is there's a major encampment in Dix Park, closing off safe pedestrian access to those of us in Carolee via Good Street. There are many camps along the Walnut Creek Greenway, and as recently as yesterday, there was an assault behind our neighborhood. This past weekend, someone was hit by a car crossing the street by Healing Transitions. In the past few months, my neighborhood has had car break-ins, a car theft, package theft, people loitering on porches, wandering our streets and sidewalks, yelling into all hours of the night. There are approximately, I think last week counted 50 people walk by our houses every day, at least. There are fires in the woods at Dix Park and off the Greenway at night as people struggle to keep warm, but they leave us all exposed to brush fire threats. In June 2024, Healing Transitions decided to end their drop-in shelter and scale down capacity. That's going to bring them down to their normal level by January. With this and the relocated St. John's shelter closing this December, there's a known need for additional white flag capacity going into winter. Prior to COVID, the South Wilmington Street shelter run by the county had a capacity of 234 people. This dropped down to 120, but was frequently less during COVID. They're now allowing 195 people. I was recently discussing the county shelter situation with someone who I met that worked for the county, and they told me the shelters are below capacity because COVID has never been worse. We were standing next to each other without masks on. As someone who dealt with health concerns during COVID, that was borderline offensive. COVID is no excuse for leaving people outside on the ground in 2024. Additionally, it should not be so hard to contact our county commissioners. Please provide email addresses or direct contact information rather than forcing people to use forums online. There's a neighborhood meeting at the Maywood Hall and Garden on the 20th with people from Healing Transitions, the city, and our neighborhood. I invite you to attend if you're able. I'm hearing great things about the new Housing Affordability Director, and if there's a way to get connected with her, please let me know. The county has not been engaged or reachable for many of the issues we've seen. The most important takeaway from this should be that actions the county takes impact so many people. We need to expand capacity where possible, open up county shelters to white flag, and meet our commitments on new shelters to help those most in need. My neighborhood and the most vulnerable people in Wake County depend on the county and have to deal with the after effects of our decisions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael. The next name that I have on my list is Jane Harrison. Welcome, Councilor Harrison.
Hey, y'all. Good to be with you. Okay, I'm just having fun a little bit today. I do invite you all to our meeting tomorrow if you would like to provide public comment at any time. I am here to support my residents. I am here to talk a little bit about really the weather. So it is getting colder, and I know a lot of folks are going to be especially in need this winter for for housing in the night. And y'all in the county are key partners with us at the city. And I thank you for everything that you do to provide shelter for people experiencing homelessness. And I want to thank you for your work to increase bed capacity, especially during these upcoming winter months. It's going to be so important. Our rates of homelessness in the county and the city have grown over the years, and I hear directly from residents who are affected, who are experiencing homelessness, as well as those who live near those who are experiencing homelessness. They rely on the county and nonprofit shelters for a warm, safe place to sleep. And at times, for folks who don't have access to shelters, they are living in camps. They're living in the woods. That's not always a safe place for them, and it's not always safe for our residents that live near those camps. I am incredibly grateful that you all are opening a new shelter that will serve 98 beds, 98 folks every night. My understanding is the shelter could open as soon as January 1st. As much as the city can do to partner and to help you all get there, I'm here. I'm with you on that because I know we are going to need increased capacity. Healing Transitions, as you all know, is reducing their beds so that they can refocus on their mission to provide substance use and addiction support services. And then we also have St. John's Metropolitan Community Church closing their shelter December 31st. All of these shelters are in the district that I represent for Raleigh City Council, so I hear directly from residents again who are impacted. Ultimately, I see us as partners. I'm really excited about the new program the city has started to help people in camps get directly into apartments. So we are now going to be offering vouchers this fall, and we're working with people that are living in the woods to get them not into a shelter, but actually into stable housing, because I want people to have the opportunity to take care of themselves and their families. This is a pilot program, and I'm hopeful we will have great results. If so, I hope that you all will be a partner on that as we continue. So again, I just appreciate your time this afternoon. I'm here in solidarity with my residents, and I thank you for your efforts on this critical work to ensure safe shelter for all those living in Wake County. Truly, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Harrison. The next name that I have on my list is Mike Shank. Mike, welcome.
Hey, I'm Mike Shank. I'm from Cary. So thank you for your service and allowing me to share today. I've lived in Wake County 24 years. I run a physical therapy clinic in Cary. I'm the founder of Pardoned by Christ Ministries that has 5 transitional houses in Raleigh. We help the formerly incarcerated reestablish their lives, reconciling with their families and the community. In Cary, home tax assessments came out in the beginning of the year. Obviously, our homes were valued much higher. People in my HOA and surrounding HOAs were concerned with the expectation of higher taxes. We decided not to challenge the home values because we thought the tax base would be revenue neutral. We were shocked when the tax bills came out. The average increase in my neighborhood was $2,400. I don't have all the inside facts and don't know the board discussions or reasoning behind the phenomenal tax increase. From the outside looking in, there are several concerns and frustrations. Many are retired and on fixed incomes. One of them will be me shortly. My tax bill is $7,400. That's 2 Social Security monthly checks. It seems recently house values are like the stock market, going up and down significantly. The value is never realized unless you sell. Potentially retail house values could reduce below the tax value. Haven't had time to analyze the 2025 budget, but it's hard to imagine that the need of the community is increased as much as the tax increase. I know in Cary, the downtown park is way over over the top. I know that's Cary, but most of the residents don't go downtown, and a significant number of visitors from Apex, Holly Springs, and the surrounding areas are the ones that go down there, and they don't pay the taxes. I've talked to a lot of Cary residents in my clinic. They feel financially fleeced, that their money has been taken without good reason. It seems like Wake County and the town of Cary has had a financial windfall. So basically, maybe we could lower the taxes next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. The next name that I have on my list is Deirdre King. Welcome, Deirdre.
Thank you. How you all doing? I'm here to talk about the library bond, and I would like for y'all to consider the Southgate Library to be added to the bond so it could be moved and be bigger like other libraries in other areas of Raleigh or Wake County. I have a son right now that his second year in Morehouse College, and because of the library, Richard B. Harrison, Southgate, whichever one we can go to and find the books, or either they would send out to get books sent to us. If we had a bigger library and a better space, then we wouldn't have to do that. We wouldn't have to go outside of our neighborhood. And then for the kids that's coming up now, they can be, in their neighborhood, around their people, and not going outside the neighborhood getting books and going far. And some people don't have cars. They have to go away to Cameron Village or other places to get the books that they need. So I would like for y'all to consider putting the Southgate Library on the bond so it can be bigger and better within our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. The next name that I have on my list is Anthony Poole. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. How are y'all? Anthony Pope. I'm a lifelong resident of Southeast Raleigh. I was here last month. Here once again to speak on the library bond. Lived in Southeast Raleigh all my life. As a child in elementary school, I used to go to Olivia Rainer Library, Richard B. Harrison Library, and the Southgate Library. So since the bond has passed now, I'm advocating for my community to see if we can get that freestanding library for the Southgate Library. It's nestled over in a little corner in the Southgate Shopping Center, and it's got a lot of mechanical as well as construction problems. We really need a freestanding library for our Southeast Raleigh community. My sons are in junior high school, one's a senior in high school, so I have to take them to the village district to actually go to the library, when they're not using the computer. My men's organization, the Men of Southeast Raleigh, have been advocating for things in Southeast Raleigh for the last 3 years. Our objective is to make sure that we, first of all, keep our legacy and our history alive in Southeast Raleigh, and secondly, to make sure that we connect and collaborate with other community partners to make sure that our voice is heard. We are a community that has been underfunded on many things for many years. It's just recently, in the last few years since gentrification has started, that we are beginning to reap some of the benefits of things that we should have had many years ago, but we didn't. One of those being the John Chavis Memorial Park, which was now a multi-million-dollar facility. However, nothing was ever done until our community was gentrified, I should say. So with that being said, we really need things in our community to be considered for our children. And so I'm advocating not only for my community, but for my children as well. So as you make these decisions about the library bonds and where the new libraries and upgrade for libraries will be, please consider Southeast Raleigh. Richard B. Harrison Library is outdated. It's old. It's in a community and an area where there's a lot of crime, a lot of stuff going on. So first of all, the community, that particular part of the area needs to be cleaned up. And the library itself is so old that, any renovation that is going to be done is certainly going to exceed $1 million. So please consider, as you appropriate these funds for the libraries, please consider our freestanding library for Southeast Raleigh, as well as substantial amount to upgrade the Richard B. Harrison Library. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you, Anthony. Those are all the names that I have on my list. For this meeting, we've also provided an opportunity for residents to submit general comments online, and this process is handled by our clerk, Ms. Gilliard. Ms. Gilliard, would you kindly share any public comments that you have received for this meeting?
Yes, Madam Chair. You've heard from several residents today about the library, and so I actually have written comments that I will share with you all tomorrow. Also, there was comments about taxes being reduced. There's a comment from Stan Latta and apartment vouchers for homeless residents, and I will include this in your packets for tomorrow so that you can read it further.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, now let's move on to the regular section of our agenda. We have two items on today's agenda, and that is a public hearing. This one is a public hearing to amend the Wake County Unified Development Ordinance. Hi, Terry.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Terry Nolan, Planner 3. Before you today is an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance. Just a little bit of background on the UDO. It's sometimes called the Land Development Ordinance. Its purpose is to protect and promote health, safety, and welfare of the county, and it regulates development, land use, and all of those things. Sometimes the UDO needs to undergo substantive changes. And when those changes are determined to be consistent with the Wake County Comprehensive Plan and otherwise advance the public health, safety, and general welfare. The request before you is a package of amendments to 2 articles of the UDO. Article 21, which is definitions and measurements, and it's pretty straightforward, just adding new terms, revising old terms, trying to get that chapter modernized. And then amendments to Article 4, the use standards related to the use table. New standards, clarified standards. These are relatively minor amendments that are being proposed in this package. There are other amendments that are kind of still in discussion and in the pipeline that we anticipate will be more substantive and impactful. So we recognized pretty shortly after we adopted Plan Wake, our comprehensive plan, that there was a need to review the non-residential portions of our UDO that related to commercial uses and the standards and everything related to those. And so we embarked on this journey kind of with these purposes in mind of economic development, simplification, improving customer service, all pretty straightforward. I want to talk a little bit about equity and equity in planning. And in my field of planning, equity is asking, how does this policy impact different groups? Who is impacted by this policy and how? Doesn't necessarily mean that we make any changes specific to a community, but we want to recognize that even though our policies are written in a neutral manner and they are carried out in a neutral manner, they may not impact all communities equally. And so that is really the lens in which we have these discussions and this analysis. So the proposed amendments, some of the highlights have to do with the use standards here. Event venue is a permanent special event place like a conference center. And this was a request from our planning staff. It would be nice to have some standards in our UDO that helps them review. It also helps a customer that might want to establish this use to understand what is going to be expected of them. We clarified standards for home occupation. These are really just minor changes to help make it clear what a home occupation is and it isn't. Me working at home a couple days a week is remote work. It's not a home occupation, it's not a home business. So those types of things. And although these changes to home occupation were very minor, we were also able to make some improvements to our website related to home occupations that will help improve our customer service. And I think that is a big win for us. Some other changes, we eliminated the special use permit requirement for cemeteries and family burial grounds. This was a request from some of our planning staff that the regulations and the reviews that take place here at the county and at the state related to this use are sufficient. And so there doesn't need to be this process of a special use permit.
We are also allowing a crematory as an accessory use to a funeral home. That's kind of what the industry is doing. You know, funeral homes are kind of one-stop shop, and this is pretty much in line with the municipalities as well. And then lastly, we propose to prohibit dry cleaning operations in water supply watershed districts. It would be operations only. If it was just a pickup service, that would be fine. What we're concerned about is the potential for contamination, and this amendment is consistent with how we treat gasoline sales and gas operations and other hazardous substances that are in our water supply watershed. We're also going to make some just grammatical corrections, changing the word church to religious assembly to be more inclusive, just changing some of the wording, and then also making changes to reflect some of the reorganization in Wake County. The well and septic operations move from environmental services over to health and human services. So the entire Unified Development Ordinance is going to be administratively updated to reflect that change. And then the definitions chapter, some fun ones. Turkey shoot. So we did not have a definition for turkey shoot, but turkey shoot was mentioned in our firearms ordinance and in our UDO related to firing ranges. Both of those provisions said that turkey shoots were exempt, but didn't define what a turkey shoot was, and that created a legal loophole. Tom is here, and he can speak about the discussions that the planning board had about what to do about turkey shoots. We also added a definition for remote work to, again, make that distinction between, working from home versus having a home business. Revising some other definitions to align with state building code, simplifying some definitions that really just did not need to be that complicated. Improving the definition of both bona fide farm and farming. Again, this was one that just had too many words that didn't really get to what we were trying to say. And so we worked with our friends over in Soil and Water Conservation to come up with some definitions that were easy to understand and also in line with state law, because it's our office that kind of makes the determination if something is farm exempt or not. So having those definitions is important. Staff findings. We believe this amendment is consistent with the policies set forth in our comprehensive plan, that the amendments align our non-residential provisions with best practices, current and emerging trends, building code, and other regulations. The amendments don't impact any existing land use, development, or permit, and the proposed amendments reflect the recent reorganization within our county departments. Staff recommend adopting OA 0124 as presented. And Tom Wells is here with the planning board recommendation. Take it away. Hello, Tom.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank all of you for your willingness to serve and to listen and to act to keep Wake County strong. I also want to congratulate the 3 members of the board that got reelected. Thank you. Thank you for your service. As Terry has mentioned, the planning board took the proposed amendments and reviewed them at multiple meetings, and we discussed the amendments at great length, some more than others. As Terry mentioned, the effort was to streamline and update the standards. The second part of it was to also update the definitions and measurements. We looked at various definitions like remote work and manufactured homes, also bona fide farms. You will be pleased to know that the current makeup of the planning board is very sensitive to maintaining agriculture as a way of life in Wake County, and that's something that we are very concerned about and working to maintain. one of the big items that we studied at length was the definition of a turkey shoot. And it was with concern that there are current applications of turkey shoot in the county, and we wanted to be fair to those operations that were already in place. We were presented regulations from other counties and cities, and also in consideration of the county's current regulations for shooting ranges. And so after a lot of time and consideration, we chose to go the route of providing the definition. And at the planning board meeting on October 2nd, with 8 members present, we did approve all of the proposed amendments unanimously. So I'd be glad to answer any questions, give you directions on where the nearest turkey shoot is if you want to participate, but we recommend approval of the proposed amendments.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Tom. I will go ahead and open the public hearing. I do not have anyone signed up to speak to this issue. Clerk Gilliard, do you have anyone that's signed up online or offered comments for this public hearing online?
I do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone in this room that would like to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments, questions for Terry or Tom? Commissioner Mile, and then Commissioner Calabria.
Good evening, Tom. I'm sorry to ask this question, but what definition did you guys come up with for a turkey shoot? I'm interested to know that. I know what I've been.
Absolutely. No, that was a question I wanted to be sure we covered. A turkey shoot means a fundraising event held by or on behalf of a nonprofit or tax-exempt organization in which contestants compete for prizes by shooting at paper or similarly composed targets with projectiles fired from shotguns, firing shot no larger than number 8s. That's the new definition.
Thank you.
And just to provide a little bit more context, there is a nuisance use in the county. And so, but there's also, as Tom mentioned, there's a legitimate turkey shoot that's been operating safely and using best management practices for a very long time. And so we kind of looked at what they did and tried to create a definition that would help with enforcement on the nuisance issue without impacting this organization.
Thank you, Commissioner Morrell. Commissioner Calabria.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for walking us through these. It's nice to have a little spring cleaning of our ordinances, even if it is in the fall. Just a quick question about the dry cleaning facilities.
Mm-hmm.
So we are prohibiting them in the watersheds, is that correct?
Yes, the water supply watershed districts.
So, what I understood you to say is that there is a risk of contamination from presumably some chemical related to the dry cleaning operations, is that right?
Yep, chlorinated solvents.
Okay, and then do we have any dry cleaners that are operating in water supply watersheds at present?
I meant to mention that we do not have any currently operating.
Okay, and are there restrictions that could be placed on such businesses that would prevent the potential for pollution, but not ban them outright? And I'm not advocating for that. I'm just curious what the range of options was on this one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, I mean, the industry is pretty heavily regulated by the state. That being said, accidents and negligence do happen. Typically, it is either washing the chemical down the drain and then it gets into the septic system, or it's dumping out the back door. And in speaking with the dry cleaning manager at the state level, I asked her, is this something that we even really need to worry about in the county? I mean, are dry cleaning operations only happening in municipalities that have public utilities? And she said, well, no, dry cleaning doesn't use a lot of water. So we do have cases out there in the state where there is contamination in the septic system or in the surrounding area. So we felt that it would be good to make this amendment to be both consistent with how we address other potentially hazardous businesses in the water supply watershed, as well as just, make sure that we're protecting our watersheds.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Calabria. Commissioner Waters.
Thank you, Chair Thomas. My turkey shoot and dry cleaning questions have been asked and answered, so thank you.
All right. Vice Chair Evans.
I just wanted to comment and say that I appreciate the staff and the planning board, walking through all this detail and cleaning things up so that there's clarity amongst our recommendations and our procedures. And so I'm happy to support this, but just wanted to acknowledge appreciation of the effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. Any additional comments or questions? Commissioner Stallings.
I would agree. Thank you both and to your staffs for this work. It's meticulous work, but important work. Just curious, did you have much resident engagement and concerns over any parts of this as you were working?
We reached out to the stakeholders that might be impacted by this. So I spoke with the Moose Lodge on several occasions and even went out there to talk about their turkey shoot operation. And that was very helpful. And we were clear that we did not want to negatively impact what they were doing. We weren't trying to police them or anything. Also got feedback from the dry cleaning industry, the trade group, and they are okay with this provision. They agree. It's important to protect our environment.
Thank you, Commissioner Stallings. All right, commissioners, seeing no more comments or questions, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Commissioners, having held a public hearing, adopts the draft statement finding that Ordinance Amendment OA 0124 is consistent with the Wake County Comprehensive Plan and Wake County Unified Development Ordinance and is reasonable and in the public interest, and adopts the attached resolution.
I'm happy to second that. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, and there's another motion?
Yes. I also move that the Board of Commissioners adopts the attached resolution to approve the proposed amendment to the Wake County Unified Development Ordinance as presented in Ordinance Amendment OA 0124.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Terry. Thank you, Tom. All right, commissioners, the next item on our regular agenda is the real property acquisition of a commercial office building condominium. Betty Parker is here to tell us more about this. Welcome, Betty.
Good afternoon, Chair Thomas. It's always a pleasure to be with you, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Today, I'm pleased to bring forward information on a purchase contract for a school site that's a bit different from our typical land bank school site. This is our first reading presentation, and per our standard process, if all goes well, we'll ask to come back on the second for consideration of approval at that time. I do want to make a brief departure and tell you how much we appreciate you and county staff for providing the flexibility to add this to today's agenda, particularly Mr. Ellis, Mr. Warren, Mr. Canada, and the inimitable Mr. Edmondson. We appreciate your assistance with that today. Today we're here to talk about a pretty exciting program we have. Our SCORE Academy offers second chance online resources for education. We have 4 locations around the county that serve students by re-engaging with those who've had obstacles that resulted in their stopping short of graduation, and providing blended learning for those students who've had discipline violations that resulted in their reassignment to one of our SCORE academies. Our SCORE Academy administration and regional location is located at 5651 Dillard Drive in Cary. It's been there since 2016. It's co-located together with our Crossroads Flex High School, and the space allocations are shown here. The blue are the flex space, the light green are SCORE, and the ones in the middle are shared. Over time, those programs have evolved and grown, and both have space needs. Both need to expand to adjust to their evolving programs to to achieve the instructional approaches and continual improvement that's sought for teaching and learning. With the relocation of SCORE to the site that we're talking about today, it frees up that additional space in the current location so that Flex can also expand. So this one move will really support 2 programs. The 4 SCORE locations are identified here as yellow dots. As you can see, they're placed somewhat regionally. This is the same approach we used for land acquisition to identify a search area. As you can see, we put a target ring around it and have found a location that we're bringing forward to today. So by keeping this area in this dimension, it assures that we've maintained the regionality of this program that needs to be moved without substantial transportation impacts to those students who come to this facility. The GIS aerial on the left provides an area view. The property is located within Arena Place, which is a business condominium development along Sunday Drive. You may recognize at the top, that's Cardinal Gibbons High School fields, so it's close to the intersection of Edwards Mill Road and Trinity Road near the Lenovo Center. It's got great access to connectivity to Highway 54, I-440, Western Boulevard, and the like. The aerial on the right provides a closer view. There are 2 condominium buildings located on a single site. The one on the right with the red dot is the one that is the building we're talking about today. So for those who are visual, it's a symmetrical 1-story brick building. This is from the front and center towards the right, the front and center towards the left. These are the architect's elevation drawings. Probably the most important thing here is there's an awful lot of glass that provides natural light, which is something that our educational facilities strive for. The current FIT plan was designed for a law firm use, so lots of offices and conference rooms that you might expect a law firm to have. We've done a preliminary feasibility study to be sure that we will have a plan that fits. This is not a final FIT plan, that's developed through the design process, but this is our study that locates the problem and locates the program and assures that all of our needs will be met. Based on the program we've gotten for SCORE and the input from the SCORE leadership, there are large, flexible open spaces that have been opened up that fits the ebb and flow of the way these students come to receive assistance at the facility. Office and conference rooms have been retained to be able to not only meet the administrative needs, but also to provide those student support services that are so important for the population in this school. The seller is the original owner of the building. He had it built to suit for the needs of his particular law firm. The building includes a little over 8,400 square feet with ample shared parking, nearly 100 spaces, that more than meets the program needs that we have. The purchase price is at $2,415,000, and that's been supported by an MAI appraisal that's slightly above that. With the relocation of the SCORE program and its administration into this space, it meets those known needs and, again, provides us an opportunity to expand and address the needs that Flex has. As I mentioned earlier, this is a condominium, so it's a condominium form of ownership. We're buying the building as a condominium, but it's subject to association dues. As with any other condominium, those dues cover the common area maintenance. So a lot of the exterior maintenance we would do on any school, we're paying the association to do. The district remains responsible for the typical building maintenance concerns that you see here. In addition to the feasibility study that I showed you earlier, we've completed this slate of due diligence studies to understand current property conditions. This data will inform our district efforts in planning for the design and approval processes and to project the project schedules and costs. As a matter of fact, the due diligence information we received has indicated that the building upfit and improvement cost will be commensurate with typical market pricing that FD&C has projected. So we've gotten typical pricing from our FD&C folks who are used to this countywide market data, and we're coming in just under that so far. On a side note, we really appreciate the collaboration of Tim Maloney and his team, as well as the teams from City of Raleigh and Town of Cary. This is a project we'd like to turn quickly to benefit both programs, and their collaboration on helping us clarify the approval processes has been absolutely invaluable. With that, that concludes our first reading presentation, and as I mentioned, we'll be coming back hopefully for a vote at your next meeting. I'm happy to address any questions you may have on this project.
Thank you so much, Betty. Questions, colleagues? Commissioner Stallings.
Thank you, Ms. Parker, for bringing this forward today. How many students does the program currently serve, and how many could it possibly serve in this expanded space?
That's a great question. It's difficult to put a specific number on it. I don't have the total school numbers with me, but I can tell you that the SCORE program graduates about 150 students a year. Because it's divided up by location, it's hard to project exactly how many will be here. But there's more capacity because this doesn't act like a normal school. We don't have a classroom that limits it. So for the students who are in through the re-engagement program, they tend to come 2 days a week to check in. It's sort of a blended support, sort of tutoring. There are not set hours, so they ebb and flow throughout the day. And I think there's more capacity there than we're currently using. And the hopes is that with this reconfiguration, that they'll be able to continue to grow with the space that we have. So we're not facing a limitation at this point. It's more regionally controlled on how far students are willing to go. The Flex has currently about 150 students. They operate a little bit differently. So they'll have more students in at one time, but they're still only in for a few hours a day and sort of rotate through. So the issue there is I think we've been operating near capacity at Flex, but in a very inefficient way in too small a space. So most of the expansion there is really about meeting the current needs and providing a modest amount of flexibility. Their growth has sort of steadied out to where we are meeting a very clear market need for the students that fit that model.
Thank you, Commissioner Stallings. Other questions? Vice Chair.
I just wanted to make a comment that this program is extremely important, and so I appreciate that we're looking for spaces around the county that can accommodate these students in ways that is convenient and supports those teachers that are trying to support some of these are the most vulnerable students in our school district that years ago would have fallen by the wayside, frankly. And this was a very innovative program that the school district enhanced a few years ago, I would say, when it was almost exclusively online, but now there's a lot more touch points with teachers and tutors, as you said, and it's been very successful. So I just had to say, for those who might not understand about this program, how important it is. And I do see that it's noted that the funds are available from existing Board of Education capital improvement plans, so there'll be no new fiscal impact to us. And so I'm happy to support this and just wanted to share those comments.
Thank you, Vice Chair. All right, well, this is for information only, and like Ms. Parker said, she'll be at the next meeting, the December 2nd meeting, I believe, for approval. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, colleagues. Next up, we have the manager's report, and we have 2 items for our manager's report this week, and we'll start with our Register of Deeds. Tammy Bruner is going to provide us with an update on the Register of Deeds Restrictive Covenants Project. Welcome, Tammy.
Hi, everybody. While I am on the name here, I'm not doing the presentation. We have 2 people that have been working on this project that I wanted to present to you. So I bring up Lisa Bacchetti, who is going to tell you about the Racially Restrictive Covenants Project our office has been working on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, and I want to point out that I am also here today with my husband and co-volunteer coordinator, Bob Williams, who is really the brains behind the project, but we'll get into that more deeply later. So thank you for your time, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. Work is nearing completion on the Wake County Racially Restrictive Covenants Project. Racially restrictive covenants are clauses that were inserted into property deeds forbidding the purchase, ownership, or occupation of property by persons of color. They had an enormous impact in Wake County on the generational accumulation of wealth, property use and community formation during the time period from roughly 1906 through the 1950s. These covenants were not unique to Wake County, but they were nationwide. Following the success of Wake County's Enslaved Persons Project, which made slave deeds accessible to the Wake County community, Register of Deeds Tammy Bruner envisioned another new aggregation of data that is housed in the ROD, a way to compile and access property deeds containing these restrictive clauses in map, print, and interactive form. Over the past year, hundreds of volunteers have worked for thousands of hours, roughly 5 man-years. That's over 10,000 hours of donated, unpaid labor to identify, index, and map these deeds. We believe that this stunning outpouring of community support speaks to a hunger in our community to understand how Wake County has become what it is today. We believe this new compilation of data can be used to help guide conversations about Wake County's direction in the future in many different areas, including transportation, development, land use, and affordable housing. The map showing the full extent of the covenants is in progress, but today we're going to take a look at a snapshot of the map, the current map, which reflects roughly 50% of the 14,500 racially restrictive covenant deeds identified for the time period from 1905 to 1950. Now, hopefully this will, click, begin. Okay. As you see the map, you will begin to see small areas of red. Each dot of red shows the existence of a restrictive covenant. The map, you can see the deed starting to grow. It started in 1906 and then began to expand rapidly in the 20s with the establishment of neighborhoods like Bloomsbury, Hayes, Barton, Country Club Hills, and on and on. There was a great deal of growth in the 20s. There was a lot of new cash in the county. The stock market was high, but in 29, the crash happened. And you'll see the map appear to pause for a moment from 33 to 39. Nothing was built, so no covenants were laid. This rapid growth here is the time period of the 40s after World War II. New housing was coming in, so that's what we see. Now, also in progress is a searchable map, which will allow individuals to view the covenant deeds associated with a particular property. You'll be able to choose a geographic area and then enlarge that area to show individual properties. The user will be able to click on a particular property, and a list of deeds associated with that property will appear. You can choose a deed, and here you see an image of the actual historical document. There's a property changing hands from Herring to Medlin. It looks like any other deed. The property is described, the terms are given. And then here on the second page, we begin to see the terms of, you see this is for a number of lots at the same time, and the restrictions are given. Things like only homes, setbacks are defined, no noxious trade. And then finally, when you get down to number 5, you see that no persons of any race other than the Caucasian race shall use or occupy any building or lot, except unless they are domestic servants of the owners. I think it's very powerful to see that exact historical document. Wake County faces significant decisions about land use, development, and affordable housing, among others, all of which have enormous impacts on how we live together as a community. We believe that this new aggregation of data can help inform the discussions around these topics. Access to, dissemination of, and preservation of this important data set is paramount. I want to thank you for your time. We look forward to your questions, and we look forward to having you reach out. Our contact information appears on this slide.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas.
Comments, questions, commissioners? Commissioner Ma.
Trying to see how to go about this. But first of all, thank you for bringing this to the board.
Right.
As someone that grew up here in Wake County,
It's my
I can
privilege.
truly remember back a lot of those times, especially when you talk about the Hayes-Barton area. Of course, there was different swimming pools, and of course, it's no longer there. There was a swimming pool there for the Hayes-Barton, and of course, those of us that grew up, we used Chavis. So it's those type of things that, you know, I'm glad we are beginning to look and reflect back on, because there were times, as they refer to as sundown towns, wherein that members of the African American population was not allowed to be in those areas once the sun went down. So it's this type of things that, as they always say, that if you don't remember your history, then you doomed to fail. And I think by remembering our history and bringing this back forth and letting people know what we experience as a population, I'm not going to say as an ethnic group, but as a population of people as a whole. So I thank you guys for doing this research. It lets people know that we are continuing to move forward, and it's up to us in terms of where we go from this point.
Right, exactly. And without the documentation, it's really difficult to have a discussion about the issues that are involved. So we feel privileged to have been given the opportunity to work on this project, and I want to emphasize again that it was not me, it was not my husband, it was with the support of hundreds of people in the community from every walk of life. We issued a press release about this project, and within an hour, we were frantically fielding emails from people who wanted to be involved. We had law students from Carolina, from NC Central. We had an entire history class from NC State. We had housewives and just interested people. And the amount of work and effort that went into this was profoundly moving to me. And I think that access to information is key, especially in our society today. So thank you again for your time. Yeah.
Comments, questions? Commissioner Waters.
I just want to express real gratitude for you, your husband, and all of those who were a part of this project. It was deeply moving to watch that map and all those red dots continue to grow. And so to see so many people today being willing to stand up and to look at how we can address our past and to have a brighter future is really important. And so I really applaud the work, and I think just an understanding of where we have been helps us to have a real path to where we can go, and to be inclusive and be intentional about how we address disparities in communities that are still feeling the impact of these covenants. So thank you all.
And thank you for your comment, Commissioner Waters. And I want to just say about the map, I want to repeat that shows the location of only 50% of the 14,500 covenant deeds that were found. It's also interesting in the map that when I say we did the map, that is the royal we. Bob is our mapper, but many of the deeds that have not been mapped at the moment have been difficult to place geographically because they were from a time period where property was not accessible. It was surveyed, but not necessarily discoverable on a map, because the property was defined as from the pile of rocks to the sycamore stump to the other side of the creek. And there are no roads, there are no landmarks. And sometimes that north arrow is pointing east, so it's a little tricky. And these are the deeds that didn't map immediately. We're researching them at the moment. But a number of those deeds happen to be enormous tracts. Just last Thursday night, we managed to place a 300-acre tract of land that was covenanted at the point where the owner died and then passed the land to his heirs. I think there were 9 different heirs. And the covenant was laid at that point, before it was a residence, before it was considered as a residence. So now that we know where that is, you'll see that enormous chunk pop up the next time. And it's countywide. Mostly you saw within the city limits of Raleigh, because those were easily identifiable and easier to map. But I think the final map will be profoundly moving. So, and it needs to be accessible. My background is as a librarian and information professional, and so we need to make this data, this compilation of data, available to everyone and accessible for further study. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Waters. Vice Chair?
Yes, I just wanted to also add my thanks to all the time invested in this, and I hope that we can share it broadly and make the community really aware of this. We do a lot of work on this board, worrying about housing and equitable housing. We talk a lot about economic mobility and the limitations for parts of our population and all that we can do at this time, to improve workforce development and all those things. But as you touched on at the beginning, so much of this wealth disparity between different portions of our population has come about as a result of some of these things that limited the ability for minorities to be able to own property and to own property in the places where it was appreciating well and gave other populations a significant advantage. And so we can't overcome it, in the short run, but we certainly have to be aware of it to try to address it the best way that we can. And as someone who grew up in segregated America as a white person, I just want to say I'm sorry. I didn't have anything to do with these regulations, but I've also read the book The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, and I would encourage any of my colleagues who have not read that to try to work that into their schedule. It's daunting, and I could only read it in bits and pieces, but it outlines how all of this took shape throughout the decades across the United States and the impact that has caused. So I think this is a very important project and something that we need to get in front of the public to just, raise awareness.
Commissioner Evans, I can't thank you enough for bringing up The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, a seminal work in our understanding of how property has been handled in this country, even when we have things on the books like the Shelley v. Kramer Supreme Court decision saying that these covenants are no longer enforceable, even though we now have on the books the 1968 Fair Housing Act that forbids discrimination in housing. He tells us that these things have never been fully or uniformly enforced, okay? So that's a painful thing to come to terms with. But it's a real danger when you let a librarian get up on her hind legs in front of you because there's going to be a reading list. So not only do I strongly, strongly urge you to look at The Color of Law, but to look at his new book as well that he's just published with his daughter. It's called Just Action. And he speaks about ways in which we can think about approaching together remedies for things that have occurred in our past. I recommend it highly. It's not my place today here in front of you to define the terms of the discussion that will be happening, but I really believe strongly that Just Action will give us some ways of talking about the problems that help us move beyond, how can I say this, issues of guilt or pain that we may feel about the actions of our ancestors, right? So they were themselves, we are us, and what we do with this information going forward is up to us. So again, our contact information is here. Please reach out. Please let us know how we can make this more meaningful to you. And I just want to say what a privilege it's been to work with under Tammy's direction. So thank you so much for your time.
I think, Commissioner, we still have comments for you.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Oh,
Commissioner
wonderful.
Calabria and then Commissioner Stallings.
We're not going to let you off that easy. Thank you, Madam
No,
Chair.
I'm ecstatic. Please.
Well, I'd start by just adding my voice to the gratitude already expressed by my colleagues. I mean, this really is a public service, and it is wonderful to have access to this information because it puts our history in it makes it so much more clear. rather than just knowing as an intellectual notion that one thing or another happened. Being able to see the map, being able to see the language of the covenants is something that I can tell you in my life I've never had an opportunity to experience, and I'm very grateful for that, and I know many other people will be. I also think it represents an innovation of what can be done with the Register of Deeds office, and I think that deserves to be said as well, because as much as we all work on block and tackle stuff all the time, getting to find ways to really add value to our residents, to do good deeds and good work like this is just fantastic. So thank you for that as well. Just a couple of questions. I know that you have been working hard on this project in Wake County, but are there other places in the country that have done this work?
Thank you. Oh, okay. Yes, so many places, Minneapolis, Washington, D.C., and I just want to say once again, my co-conspirator here has designed a process to do this research, right, that is flexible, replicable, elegant, and we're documenting it, and it can be used by any jurisdiction who might have a database of deeds like this at their disposal. Let me just talk about the scale of what Bob has been able to do. The number of deeds in the Register of Deeds office for the time period from 1906 to 1950 is roughly 600,000 documents. I don't have enough time left on this planet. All of us to put together in this room don't have enough time left to read those documents one by one. But Bob, we did that for the slave deeds, but there were a much smaller number of deeds. You could actually do that. Bob was able to use AI and optical character recognition to scan those deeds to find 20,000 needles in the 600,000 needle haystack to review. And it was that original batch of 20,000 deeds that our volunteers then went through and completely documented. And I can talk for a long time about the deeds that contained the racial language but were not, in fact, germane to this project. So we're speaking to Buncombe County, and we've been about doing it. They have other things on their plate right now. I suspect that Buncombe doesn't have the bandwidth for this at the moment, right? But we've spoken to people from Winston-Salem. We've spoken to people from Wilson. I think that, yes, this documentation is achievable for a community that wants to find it, right? So let me invite you to another event that's happening very shortly on Wednesday at noon in the AIA building. We will be presenting in greater depth on the details of the project. I'll have a 20-minute time slot there instead of the 5 minutes you generously allocated for us. So we would love to see you there. We'll have some of our volunteers there. We'll be presenting with Carmen Coffin, who wrote another seminal work on the historic Black neighborhoods in Raleigh. Will be one of the segments. We'll speak, and then 2 design professors from NC State will also be talking about ways of presenting statistical information like this. So if you're free on Wednesday, come on down. We'd love to see you. So, all right.
And just the other, I don't know if this is a thought or a question, but it seems to me when you were talking about how this information can be used going forward, not just for historical and reflective purposes, but as we have conversations about housing and other things, I've got to digest internally what that could mean for us.
Exactly.
You may have clear thoughts that would certainly welcome you to share them, but in addition to those, I wonder if once we have, for lack of a better term, clean data and complete data, are there things that our GIS folks can work on or whatever to correlate, okay, well, guess what? Now we can see the correlation between restrictive covenant or, race-based covenants and poverty or whatever it is that we want to measure, because I bet you can pull out a lot of really important and interesting things from that.
Well, thank you again from the bottom of my heart for asking this question, because in my mind, one of the most impactful ways this information could continue to exist and be accessible would be as an IMAPS layer. That's just one thought that I have, that I have had. I mean, my career has been based on getting information into the hands of the people who need it. And that IMAPS that the county has is so many ways of layering information, types of information over each other so you can see and compare them, right? So to me, that's a really great place for it to reside. For the conversation, the extraordinarily difficult conversations that need to happen around these topics, again, I want to shout out for Just Action by Richard Rothstein. It's a difficult debate. A lot of the language surrounding that debate has become weaponized. It's like a social war kind of thing. You know, there's the R word, right? But Rothstein gives us ways of approaching it. He invokes the legal concept of remedy, okay? Now, my daughter is a lawyer, and I'm so glad she's not here today, because if she hears me try to talk about legal concepts, I'm going to get a pasting when I get home. But remedy, as I understand it, is a person in my family is harmed, is murdered, is irrevocably harmed in some way. There is no way to roll back the clock and make me whole from that tort, that wrong, that event. But going forward, there are theoretically ways in which it could be addressed. In the legal system, we apply penalties for crimes committed. In the arena of economic life together and property ownership, I think there are ways that it could be approached. I mean, I personally object to my tax dollars being used to subsidize a builder who's building an 18,000 square foot home off Toxie Drive, and he's getting tax breaks for that. If he's building that kind of a house, he doesn't need my support to do that. He's going to be rewarded on the open market, and theoretically. I would rather see my tax dollars in that area be devoted to providing homes for other people, right? For people who need that support, much more than someone who's going to spend upwards of $7 million for a single family residence. That's just my opinion, where I am. So it's a conversation we have to have, and it's not going to be easy.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stallings, if I could interject really quickly. One, Commissioner Calabria, data will never be completely clean.
No, it really won't.
Or completely complete, right. Actually. Right, yes. And I do actually want to give a shout out to Tammy Bruner. The opportunity to use artificial intelligence in a way and in a test case for this project out of your office in a way that does not complicate some of the other things that people think artificial intelligence is used for, right? It's an easy way. It's a very small project that it could be used for. Unlike folks often think that it's, artificial intelligence is all about deep fakes and, cyber crimes and all of this stuff. But there are really great uses that governments can implement artificial intelligence practices for. And so thank you so much for showing us that this is one of them, right? You start off small so that people understand how to use it, and then it can grow into other ways that we can use it. So thank you so much for that. But I'm going to go back and defer to Commissioner Stallings. I have a couple more comments, but please.
Well, I was thinking the same thing, Chair Thomas, and just some reflections as I'm sitting here listening to this amazing, meaningful conversation. And I'm thinking about what happens when we all have Tammy Bruner, because I remember reading about this when you were beginning this and thinking, wow, what a meaningful project, and it's been so good to watch it and see the fruits of this work. So we have the combination of Tammy Bruner, a librarian, so when I heard a librarian was on this, I knew we were in good hands, and partners and spouses, committed partners and spouses, and then AI. So those four things came together and just created an amazing project for us, and just helping to raise awareness, helping us to understand our history more fully, and also helping us to understand disparities more fully. So just so grateful for this work. And I was thinking about our library system and how we might incorporate our library system in this work.
Funny, you should ask.
Forward. Yes,
Yes,
every time we say
exactly.
something, she lights up, has already thought about it probably. But I just want to say thank you for this work. And I'm really thinking about how we can use it for good, and AI for good, technology for good, but how we can use this for good, for education purposes, but also for county commission purposes, you know, in the public policy work that we do. So just thank you so much, and looking forward to more. It sounds like you'll have more information to share
Yes.
in the future as well. So thank you so much.
We hope very much that the maps will be completed in about, what were you telling me, sweetie? 3 months, 4 months, something like that. And in addition to the wonderful things that you said in support of Tammy, I want to shout out the ROD staff that day in and day out has done the tedious daily work of handling the deeds and handling the maps and loading them into the information systems that exist to hold them, right? It's this kind of work that often falls by the wayside. It's not public, it's not open, it's, you know, you help one customer and then you help the next one. And that's how it goes for years and years. And gradually these accretions of data are built, and we can see what they mean when they're all together. It's really a beautiful thing. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Stallings. I think Commissioner Mile has additional comments.
Yes, I'm sorry. I mean, this is just an awesome topic. And, you know, and I think back, you know, when you look at it from a historical perspective, of course, you know, coming out of the Civil War, which ended in 1865, a lot of this is what took place during Reconstruction. That's when you started seeing a lot of this type of activities. You know, but the type of work that you guys continue to do is just awesome, because especially when you start talking about Wake County, for instance, the Camden Village area, which is, I'm sure, was in that red area, because that was a high area in terms of where a lot of this took place, because a lot of people don't even realize there was a university there in the Camden Village area called Latter University. You know, so it's that kind of stuff that, you know, you got to keep beating the drum. You got to keep talking about it. Yes. And for those that haven't had the opportunity, I would suggest them taking a look at and reading John Hope Franklin's book, From Slavery to Freedom, yes, because it addresses so many different topics, and it covers a lot of this type of activity and stuff.
it does, and thank you so much for bringing up Dr. Latta. One of the constant temptations in doing this kind of work is the fascinating rabbit holes that open up, that just the personalities, the power struggles, the power structures in Raleigh and Wake County are just mind-blowing. And thank you for mentioning Dr. Latta. Does everyone here understand that Dr. Latta had a Latta University? He owned several hundred acres of land, which he had acquired after being enslaved on the Cameron plantations. Now, I have these deeds pulled out, and there's an article in them, but in around 1926 or 1927, he needed to sell some portion of that land for the university operation, perhaps. I don't know exactly. He sold it to an entity named Parker Hunter Realty Corporation, a great big realty firm that was in Raleigh at the time. I think it was 285 acres, something like that. He wanted to sell it. He sold it. Parker Hunter bought it for a price. I don't know what the price was like, but Parker Hunter Realty went bankrupt. And in their bankruptcy sale, a woman named Helen T. Jordan purchased that property for, I think it was $500, maybe a different amount. But she immediately covenanted that property, right? So that land that was being held in the African American community was taken away from them, the possibility of the further use of that land. She immediately covenanted it, and that's the area that runs through, help me, Sunset Hills over to Dixie Trail, yes? Yeah, right off Wade Avenue. So perfectly legal. Dr. Latta sold the land. He wanted to sell the land. He was paid for the land. But through these circumstances, it's no longer available for use in the African American community. So one thing that I think is so moving that I have trouble talking about even now is the map that Bob is working on for connecting geographical locations to the deeds that are laid upon them. That map has the potential to allow you, if you, for instance, were to select an area in the middle of Carter Finley Stadium, you would see not only Carter Finley Stadium, but you would see Lincolnville rise up around it. You could select a chunk of concrete in the middle of Wade Avenue or whatever, and suddenly here's the rest of Oberlin. You could choose an area at the Museum of Art, and not only would Polk Prison Camp appear, but you would see the lands of the Method community that were condemned in order to build that facility, right? It's yeah. So stay tuned. We're working as hard as we can. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Mile. Bob, will you come up here with Lisa?
Exactly. It's about.
She keeps saying Bob, my husband, and Bob, and Bob, and Bob is just sitting there just as quiet. So we appreciate you all.
When Tammy called me and asked me if I would be interested in doing something about this project, I said, well, I don't really know that much about covenants. Let's talk about them. And so we talked about them, and she said, what I really want is a map. I want a map. And without giving him any vote at all, I signed him right up. And because, this is 47 years, man. So we've been getting into trouble together for a long time, but I just want to say that the impact, the visceral impact of being able to see what happened is due to my husband.
Well, thank you.
So.
Yeah, I think it's important work, I really do. And it is very moving.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. You get to see the history as it evolved and all these people, and you can't help but be moved. It's really.
Right. And it's a piece of history that sometimes isn't really written out. I joke with Tammy, I have an evil twin, and at a historical society meeting, I lost my temper, and I jumped a woman from the archives. I really ought not to have done that. But it's just too much of the history is written in one particular way, and we need to document all of it, okay? We need to make all of it accessible.
Well, thank you both so much for all of the work that you did. Go ahead, please.
Oh, no, the last thing is the ROD site does have links to those two videos that were in the presentation, right. So you can see them. And the map itself of the growth of the covenants is going to be updated because, like we said, there's more deeds to come. And the other piece is this utility that you can look spatially to look through and find communities that, covenants and things that no longer exist. Like she said, you can go to I-40 and you can click a button and you can see, people wonder why do you even care, because nobody lives there. Mm-hmm. But the deal is that people used to live there.
Right.
And you can find all those covenants and stuff there. So it's very moving.
It's very moving. And another comment that we've heard is, well, we had to pave all that because there really wasn't anything there. Well, yes, there was. There were communities there. And there were people living there, and
right. So being able to see these places that have literally been wiped off the map, and you can see them. It's really.
Well, I want to personally say thank you so much for this specific work, because it is so important and so impactful. But also, we've heard a lot about people talking about libraries today as a librarian, and the work that can be done, and so. Earlier this year, I talked about a digital equity center, and I talked about digital literacy in the community. And these are the kind of things that we are going to get out of a digital equity center if that's something we decide to do.
Yes.
These are the kind of things that the technology, the artificial intelligence, that communities, even with limited knowledge of how to use technology, can still use and see and do.
Exactly.
In a digital equity center. So thank you so much for that. I understand that, Lisa, you managed the volunteers and you read through a majority of the documents. And of course, it was Bob that created the maps that you all showed earlier. And so I want to thank you both for that. But I'm going to come down there. I have something for you. I actually have an award. And it says, with our greatest appreciation, we hereby present Lisa and Bob with this award in recognition for your ongoing commitment and dedication and service to the residents of Wake County in your tireless efforts on the Racially Restrictive Covenants Project.
Well, thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Anita. This is wonderful.
Oh.
Sure, you bet.
Thank you so much. Well, we gratefully accept this award from you, Commissioner Thomas, but we want to say that every step of the way we have been standing on the shoulders of giants, staff, and leadership. So thank you so much, and volunteers.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, here we go.
Like we
There we
like
go.
to.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you both. Thank you
you're
so
very
much.
Welcome. You're very welcome.
This is the box. Don't want it to break.
Oh my
before you get
gosh.
it off.
Yes, here. I'll hold it so you don't have to worry about it. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So next on our agenda, we're going to hear from Jason Horton with an overview of the upcoming community survey. And Jason, we expect AI in this. We want to see digitized things on this community survey.
I will say that's a tough presentation to follow, but I'll do my best.
Welcome, Jason.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you. As many of you know, Wake County adopted our strategic plan in April of last year. It includes 24 goals across 6 focus areas, and there's 2 efforts that are currently underway. One is staff is developing a recommended set of initiatives that will contribute towards advancing each of the 24 goals in the strategic plan. The other is we're laying the groundwork on how we can measure the outcomes associated with the strategic plan, and that's what I'd like to talk about today. To accomplish that measurement piece, Wake County will be surveying residents of Wake County. So in the next few weeks, Wake County will begin that implementation effort. Working with our communications office, we are branding this Wake Insights to help avoid confusion with other surveys that have been issued over the past months. We want you to be aware of this initiative. And as these surveys are going out, if you are asked by residents or constituents, encourage them to provide their input and feedback by participating in the survey. So what is Wake Insights? It is a public opinion poll. In it, we are going to ask residents to identify what their most important or pressing issues are. We'll use the results from this poll to help inform decision-making and prioritization of efforts undertaken by the county. We'll also use this to track and measure our strategic plan, which I'll talk more about in a later slide. We also want Wake Insights to supplement but not replace other efforts and surveys collected by the county. For example, a few months ago, I believe I was here, and Vice Chair Evans shared that Go Triangle was collecting a transportation survey. We don't want to necessarily replace the same information that's requested in that. We also, over the last few months, Health and Human Services and our Livable Wake program has been implementing the Community Health Needs Assessment. In fact, one of the reasons why we chose the name Wake Insights was to avoid community survey, which is like, hey, didn't I just take something for this? So we wanted to create some distinction from the Community Health Needs Assessment. We also wanted to avoid confusion with customer satisfaction surveys. Many of our departments currently issue community satisfaction surveys, but this is different. A community satisfaction survey asks about direct experiences. So I received a permit or I went to a medical clinic. I want to provide feedback about my interaction there. The Wake Insights is more of a perception survey where we're asking folks about to give us their feedback that are shaped by observation or their beliefs or feelings. Many other things can factor into how folks respond to the questions that will be asked in the survey. Knowing that this survey will help measure our strategic plan, it was important that we find a partner that had experience in this type of work. Last summer, we started a request for proposal process, and through a competitive selection process, staff selected ETC. ETC has a national reputation. In fact, when I'm talking to peers that have done this type of survey, and I ask, do you do some type of community survey? And the answer is yes. I said, I'm curious who you use. Probably 2 out of 3 times they say ETC. Many of our partners here in other municipalities or counties in North Carolina also use. For the sake of space, I didn't list them all, but 4 examples here locally. include the City of Raleigh, the City and County of Durham. They work collaboratively to do a joint survey in Durham County. The Town of Holly Springs and Mecklenburg County does a survey annually. Many of the questions that we are going to ask, let me back up. Staff intends to do this survey about every 2 years. And so the types of questions that we want to ask in this survey, we want to ask again when we do the survey in 2 years, so we can measure the change that we're making that contribute, again, back to the implementation of the strategic plan. When you look at our plan, some of the goals, we want to establish a baseline or confirm the baseline data that we currently have. 4 examples are listed on the screen, including barriers to healthcare, barriers to employment, access to educational opportunities, and whether or not Wake County does a good job engaging residents and gathering public input. But in total, there are 10 goals of the 24 that will rely on the community survey to provide a key indicator for measuring our strategic plan. So using the expertise from ETC, they have helped us shape these questions that we'll ask in this next survey. A few things that I do want to share is that what ETC will do on our behalf and what Wake County will do during the implementation effort. First of all, by engaging with ETC, they have access to market information for residents within the county. That's a resource that the county alone does not have. So they have developed a sampling plan that includes up to 10,000 households within Wake County, and they'll do a first wave of solicitations by sending an invitation to 7,000 households. They'll monitor the feedback and the response of that survey, and they stand ready to issue up to 3,000 additional invitations to take part of the survey. That marketing data also gives information about social media, email, and phone information, and they'll be following up with the initial wave of invitations to encourage response and participation. What Wake County will do, we want to ensure that the community as a whole has access to the survey. In addition to that targeted sample that would be sent by ETC, we'll make sure that there's an open link available to any resident. So if you're not one of those initial households that received the survey and you still want to provide your input, you have the ability to do that by completing the survey online. We'll also amplify the message in the targeted social media from ETC by broadcasting information about the survey on our social media channels. And we'll also include information on our Wake County website so that if you're looking, hey, did this invitation I received in the mail, is it legitimate? And you check our website, you'll be able to see the information there. We'll also issue press releases and hope that our local media partners will help amplify the message about the survey. A few other things that we're doing that are not on this list include we are going to post this on our internal website for Wake County employees. We also want our employees to provide input on this on the survey. I'm also meeting with library staff to see how they can help relay information in the libraries as an organization that has the most interactions with our public on a daily basis. Lastly, there were many stakeholder groups that participated in the development of our strategic plan. We'll communicate with those groups and encourage them to share information about the survey, Wake Insights, with their membership and their groups as well. When we look at the representation and the diversity that we want in the responses, without reading this list, the list on the left are all the factors that ETC will be looking at when they're monitoring the results. If we are not receiving information, say, from one portion of the county or, say, from a certain age group, they will use that information to do that second wave to make sure that we're getting as much representation from those hard-to-reach groups as possible. One improvement for this iteration that we are going to see compared to the last community survey we did 2 years ago is around geography. ETC is able to use GIS and map the results of our surveys with greater detail, which will provide valuable results for us as we look at those findings. The other thing I wanted to talk about was languages. The survey will be professionally translated, not only in English, but into Spanish. Those English and Spanish are clearly the top two languages that most of our residents speak within the county. What is less clear is once you get to the third most common language, or fourth and fifth. ETC will have professional translation available for any group that wants to have the survey translated into their native language. Not only will they translate the language of the survey, they will translate the results or the findings and the feedback from those responses back to a format that is accessible to Wake County employees and staff in the final report, so that that input is not lost in the analysis. A few things, what will happen next? We're in the process right now of finalizing the design. In fact, ETC is working on internal testing now. We're looking for that survey to be wrapped up, the design to be wrapped up potentially later this week or early next week. They will go to print and mail that first wave of invitations to residents. Depending upon when they receive the surveys, they can either complete the survey online, or if they do not have access to a computer, they can also complete that survey on paper, and there's a self-addressed paid postage stamp or paid envelope with the invitation that they can return it to ETC, and they will code the responses. Depending upon when they receive it, we anticipate residents will start providing their feedback in either late November, maybe after Thanksgiving, after you've had your turkey, and if you received it in the mail at that point. For others, we anticipate that most of the results will start coming in early December. The survey will be open, we estimate, between 10 to 14 days, depending upon the response rates that we get and whether or not we need to do a second wave of responses. We do anticipate that the survey collection will be complete by late December, and preliminary results will be available for the Board of Commissioners to receive at your January retreat. The final report, including the GIS analysis and the detailed information, will be available later in early 2025, but we wanted to get those results to you early in the year, as that may shape your direction for 2025. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the board about this upcoming effort.
Thank you so much, Jason. Very helpful. Colleagues, comments, Commissioner Waters.
Thank you for all the work that is going into this plan. I wanted to reflect on some of the examples that you listed might be included as you're collecting data. Low barriers to healthcare and behavioral health services, low barriers to employment, access to broadband, childcare, and the like, and also educational opportunities. Since you are heavily focusing on mail to households, how do you intend to capture members of our community who are maybe unhoused or in transition to make sure that our most vulnerable are able to have their experiences captured in the work that we're doing, and as we look at our strategic plan?
So that's where we're not relying just on the mailed invitations that will go out. That's why we're going to rely on stakeholder groups and partners that help develop the strategic plan to help relay that information out to community groups. Part of those groups that we engage with the development of the strategic plan include organizations that work with the unhoused, and so they'll be able to relay that information to residents. And I will encourage them to connect them to resources to provide their input.
So if you could expand just a little bit, so those stakeholder groups, how will that information feed into the data that you collect for the surveys? Will they be separate? Will they be compiled? What can you imagine that looking like? Because I just want to make sure that we really capture those most vulnerable members of our community, because oftentimes when surveys are like a primary tool, a lot of people who are in difficult situations don't have capacity to be able to complete those types of surveys or participate in those types of engagement, but have really important lived experiences that can help shape the work that we're doing. So what might that look like?
Yeah, so every response that ETC collects will be available to us for the results. They will take a subset of the surveys that are collected based on the demographics responses and include that in their final analysis. It may not include all responses that we received, but it will be representative of the county overall. But we will have access to every response that is submitted by anyone that provides their input in the survey. That will allow us to go back, and if there are certain demographic groups that we want to take a closer look at, we'll be able to dig into that information and look at the responses to any of the questions that are asked.
Okay, and one more question. Have you all done any sort of look at like the reading level that the questions will be written at? I know that's always an important kind of question, you know, writing at like an 8th grade level, what that level of readability might be. Is that something that is a part of the conversation? If not, I'd like to put that forward as something to be considered to make sure it's accessible to as many people as possible.
That's a great question, and this is where I'm
sorry, Jason, can you speak into the mic a little bit?
Yes.
Here?
Yeah, that's a great question, and what we have done during the design is this is where we have used AI as well to help look at the questions that were being asked to make sure that they are not written in a way that would exclude or somehow limit someone's response. So we've taken draft survey questions and put it into AI to have it read at or reformat the question to look at it at a 6th grade reading level, so that is included in our design process.
Thank you.
Colleagues, any additional questions, concerns for Jason? Vice Chair?
I just have one comment. I appreciate all of this and your attempts to get all of this engagement, and I'm really excited about it. And I certainly understand why you're trying to get it and have feedback for us in January. Just one concern I have when I first read through this a few days ago was the timing of the survey. I know in my life, and particularly when I had young children and everything that goes on around the holidays, late November through late December is a pretty distracting time, and I'm just concerned we might not get as robust a response to the surveys and as we like. So I would just say I would almost want to ask that we're prepared to ask again in January would be my recommendation if we don't get what we think is a healthy amount of responses in late November and December, because I suspect that might be a challenge. Just a thought.
Yeah, and what I would share is that's something that went into our conversations about the timing of this. There's a couple of things that went into those conversations. One is we just went through an election cycle where residents were being asked to provide input on a number of public opinion polls. And so that was crowding out some potential engagement. We wanted to wait till after the election season to interact with the public on this front. We also wanted to be cognizant and not interfere with the data collection of the community health needs assessment. That is an effort that's completed every 3 years. We want to do this every 2. So about every 6 years, there will be an overlap where we'll be reaching out to residents. This just happens to be the right out of the gate 1 year where that overlap occurs. I think moving forward, what we'll look to do is try to have this type of survey completed earlier in the fall so that it reduces the potential chance for other obligations that may detract from engaging and providing a response.
Well, I certainly understand and agree that you wouldn't have wanted to do it much earlier this year. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm still getting text surveys about who that I vote for and various things with the election, so it ain't over yet. But I hope we get a good response, but I just have a little bit of concern about how the timing will work out, and if we have to, we'll give it a second go, but we certainly want to hear from our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Additional comments, questions? Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, we're going to move on to other business. Would anyone like to report on any advisory or regional board news? Going once? Okay. Commissioners, does anyone have any other brief reports that they would like to share at this time? Commissioner Waters.
I just wanted to just express appreciation for Team Wake. I know earlier this month we recognized November as National Adoption Awareness Month, and on Saturday they had a fair to help members of our community learn more about adoption, and it was just really nice to see so many community partners there, as well as Team Wake be so passionate about the work of creating lasting families. And so also stopped by the YMCA for something else and happened upon a baby shower put on by Wake County as well. And so just want to just amplify how caring and compassionate Team Wake is in meeting the needs of all of our community members, and really grateful to be able to experience some of that work.
Thank you so much. Vice Chair?
Yes, I was just going to highlight that we participated last week in the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Legislative Goals Conference, and appreciate my colleagues putting their confidence in me to be our voting delegate. It was a day and a half of robust discussion with folks from counties all across the state, working with our state association to formulate a group of goals that we could all agree on, that the organization would advocate for in the long session with the General Assembly. So it was interesting discussions, but I think that we accomplished a lot. We've got some goals on there that we would all care about in terms of encouraging better support for public education, for asking for better state support for early childhood and child care issues. And our county was responsible for getting 2 new initiatives added that we had never had a housing advocacy goal before, and we got one approved that the state association will be advocating for more funding from the state to assist with low-income housing project development. And we also were able to get added to the agenda an item to ask the state for assistance with our foster care situation around having to house foster children in county-owned facilities and using our facilities and our staff, and found out that many other counties, large and small, are dealing with that problem right now. So hopefully some good fruit will come with the advocacy that will take place in the next year with the General Assembly, but wanted to highlight what I felt at least was accomplishments in getting a whole bunch of very different counties with different perspectives on board for many good things.
Thank you for that, Vice Chair. Just to echo what you were saying about the Legislative Goals Conference, I want to thank Ben for really preparing us. He, as the voting delegate, he sat with the Vice Chair, with me chairing the committee. We had lots of conversations around the things that were on our agenda, things that were good for Wake, but things that we also thought would be good for 100 counties that we could advocate for. Like the Vice Chair said, some things around housing and foster care. And also to my colleagues, I know I'd mentioned it several times, that each commissioner has the opportunity to speak. And Commissioner Stallings did get up and go to the microphone and speak in support of some goals. Commissioner Calabria and Commissioner Mile were in the Vice Chair, like literally on either side of her, advocating constantly for changing language or making amendments to the language. So thank you all. Commissioner Waters was there as well for education. And so thank you so much for the support and the help with that. I think that a lot of the things that we are trying to do when it comes to our legislative goals and things with the General Assembly, and this was for both state and federal goals for the state association, but a lot of the things that we are trying to do at the state level, really the needle can be moved if we do it through the state association, and it's something that's good for all 100 counties. So thank you so much for taking the time those 2 days to do that work. Commissioner Stallings.
And I just wanted to add to that, everyone, and thank you, Chair Thomas, for being a part of chairing that committee, and Ben, too. And it was great being alphabetized with W being on the last row, because the gallery, which was the rest of us, could be in Vice Chair's ear, and Ben, too, being there. It was really a team effort in going over, because some of these goals were really detailed and comprehensive. And the only one thing I wanted to mention also was tax relief, and I just wanted our residents to know that we advocated full-throatedly with that. And we hear your concerns with tax relief, but understanding, please, that a lot of our increased taxes went for public education this year. So we are trying to thread a needle that's sometimes delicate to do so, but we really advocated for tax relief. And that was a goal. I don't know how far that will go, but it was a goal that the body did agree on, is working towards tax relief. So I just wanted our residents to hear that as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Stallings. Vice Chair, did you have something else?
I was just going to clarify that in particular, and thank you so much for raising that one because it's very important. We were advocating for them to allow for some indexing and flexibility on the Homestead
Exemption
Act that currently is the same income level threshold all across the state, whereas different counties have different standards of living and so forth. And so we got some support from across the state in trying to get some flexibility there on those limits.
Thank you. Any other brief reports? Commissioner Mile, Commissioner Calabria? All right. Thank you so much, colleagues. Mr. Attorney, is there a need for a closed session today?
Yes, Madam Chair. The purpose of the closed session is to consider the performance of the board's appointed employees pursuant to NCGS 143 through 18.11A6.
Thank you. I'm happy to make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you all. We are in closed session. Wait. We are back from closed session. Thank you, everyone. With nothing to report, that concludes our agenda for today. The board's next regular meeting and final meeting of 2024 is scheduled for Monday, December 2nd at 5 p.m. That is also a meeting where we will be swearing in commissioners who just won their election. I would like to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving next week. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned. You